Welcome into a Tuesday, October 14th edition of Daily Faceoff Live. Tyler Yaremchuk and Carter Hutton with you. As always, streaming on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. As always, we're brought to you by Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. The title of our show today is There Any Hope in Buffalo? We're going to talk about that a little bit later on with Jeff Marek, but it's got the YouTube chat fired up. We got one, I'm assuming a Sabres fan. They did the Yakupov greater than Owen Power. That's your former teammate, Huts.
That is my former teammate, Nail Yakupov. I played with him in St. Louis. What an absolute treat that was. And I hope there's something going on in Buffalo. I feel for these guys. My daughter was born there. I spent a lot of time in Buffalo. But, man, for a team that needed a good start, they are not getting it, Ty.
No, and again, Jeff Marek will swing by in a little bit. We're going to kind of talk at like two ends of the rebuilding spectrum. You have the Montreal Canadiens, who seem to be doing everything right. You have the Buffalo Sabres, who seem to continue to be doing everything wrong. But we're going to kick off our show out west. A couple of surprising teams in the Western Conference to lead off our program today. And listen, expectations were not high in Seattle, and they're only 2-0. And I always kind of laugh. No one would ever make a big deal out of a 2-game winning streak in January, but here we are. It's the first 2 games of the year, so we're having a conversation about them. And it's the same thing in Nashville, where Barry Trotz coming into the season had the line of, we've proven the experts wrong in back-to-back seasons. Let's do it for a third straight year. They've got points in all 3 of their games as well. I really don't think either one of these teams is going to be able to do much to convince me they're legit. Will you say the same, or do one of these two kind of stand out to you as maybe having some holding power?
No, I guess for me, the team that potentially has a bit more holding power in my mind would be the Nashville Predators, just because some of the firepower up front, right? You look at Forsberg and Stamkos and Roman Josi being healthy. And, last night, I don't know if you'll see a little bit of trouble with that cross-check on to Chuck last night. But that being said, just maybe that could be the difference maker. UC Saros, I think goaltending being equal in the sense of Joey Decord has really bloomed into a guy that is a potential outright star in this league, and he's done a great job in Seattle. But UC Saros, I expected him to be back, a bounce back year. The Preds have a lot of value in them, right? I think UC Saros calms that whole situation down. And yes, there's different moving parts. You have some older guys in that lineup with Marchessault, O'Reilly, Forsberg, Stamkos, guys that have been around a long time. But that being said, if you can slot some younger talent in there, some fresh legs, keep things moving forward, there is potential. Yes, it's a star-studded Central Division. It's going to be tough. But when I go out to Seattle and I look at their roster, Ty, for me, just the lack of superstars, even in the making. I know Matty Beniers has done well. Jared McCann has put up points. They just don't really have that in a Pacific Division where it feels like you need star power to compete and stay in there. I look for Lane Lambert as the new head coach to bring a little more I guess I would say like non-negotiables to their lineup where they're going to be a little more consistent. I think they're going to be in tighter games, but that all things being equal, I just don't know what their separator is going to be to continually find ways to win games against teams that are just littered with star players.
If you're going like gun to my head, Tyler, you got to pick one that stays in the playoff mix longer. I do think I lean Nashville just because dog days of the season, can your star power just help you chisel out a few more points here and there? Again, I've never been a big Seattle Kraken guy. The jokes, people make the joke, but like the worst thing that happened to them was making the playoffs early on because it caused them to accelerate, and not properly build this thing up. But I again, don't see it. The goals against Joey Decord, maybe that is the difference maker in all of this, but you said it. Nashville's got a good goalie in their own right. So I think these are two teams. By Jan 1, we're not talking about either one of them being particularly close, but if I will give a sliver of hope to either one of these fan bases, it is Nashville because of that star power. Like we kind of forget how good Philip Forsberg is. And, Marchessault, Stamkos, you at least have one impact guy on each one of your top 3 forward lines. Like, I'm wincing as I say every single one of these points because I truly do not believe in them. But I think I can make a case for the Nashville Predators. But you said it, Huts. That Central Division is absolutely loaded. And that's where I want to stick for topic number 2. and it's a player you've been talking about a little bit. St. Louis Blues fans very excited about Jimmy Snuggerud, but he's off to a great start, not just to this season, 3 points in 3 games. He's up to 7 points in his first 10 career games as a member of the Blues, and that throwback jersey is sweet, by the way. But this St. Louis team, I think I kind of tend to overlook them, but when you go take a peek at who they have and these young forwards, and Snuggerud is just another example and another piece to add to that group. Man, I think the Blues are closer to, being a team that's in the inner circle of Stanley Cup contenders than they are a team that's, going to be fighting for a playoff spot.
I agree. I guess for him, he's a guy that gets a little bit overlooked, I think, early in the year when we were predicting, Calder race and guys that are in that hunt, because he's a little bit more mature of a player. I think he comes in, a little less offensively, just an absolute dominant superstar, like some of the guys we've seen when we talk about Demidov and we talk about, Bedard and these younger guys that are just going to create, but he fits well in that two-way top 6 guy that can kind of do it all. And I think for the Blues, it's just the slotting of, Buchnevich and Schenn. You have some players up front with the emergence of Robert Thomas and Kyrou, like they're kind of in that middle. So you have that upper tier of veteran player with Buchnevich and Schenn and where they're at. And then you have some other guys slotted in there that can really be leaders, and they have, I guess maybe wear the blue note and they're the future. Now you put him in a good spot where I like their goalies as well. I look at Jordan Binnington. I look at Joel Hofer. Joel Hofer was unbelievable the other night against Calgary. And that's coming off a tough loss for Jordan Binnington at home against the Minnesota Wild to open the season. And then Binnington bounced back. And I don't want to, you pull Binnington's numbers up here. They're a little bit skewed. He gives up 5 in the first game but he was great yesterday against Vancouver. But that being said, Dave Alexander, their goalie coach there, also the Team Canada goalie coach, he's done a great job with backup goalies, right? I can say for myself, I had a career year there. Ville Husso's had a lot of success. You look back to Jake Allen, he had a lot of success. That being said, how they platoon these guys is going to be so important. Joel Hofer played over 31 games last year. It kind of drove Binnington's numbers down a little bit. So he was fresher when you had a chance to get into the playoffs. Because this is a team, Ty, I think we both can say if they're going to make the playoffs, so they're going to have to be good down the stretch. And I think being strategic with how those two guys go down the road is going to be huge for the St. Louis Blues team.
I love that you brought up the way they develop goalies. I can't remember if this was free agency show or deadline show when we were joking about how did Ville Husso turn 38 good games in St. Louis into $27 million in career earnings? Like, you go outside of that little blip, that 1 year, he has been average for the bulk of his career, and somehow he's just cashed in on it. It's impressive.
Yeah, I guess I could say the same thing for me, right? It was a good run. You're protected, insulated, predictable hockey. But again, I try to deflect as much as I can toward Dave Alexander because he is a world-class goalie coach, if not one of the best in the league. And I think he does a really good job. And he has a voice in that room. One thing that I found unique getting them play in St. Louis was they would bring him into meetings and he would go over the other goalie. He would go over your goalie. He would kind of really get players to understand what goalies think about and what goes on in that process. And that was one of the first coaching staffs that I really seen incorporate the goalie coach into meetings and into just success of what the team does. So kudos to them and Doug Armstrong on being aware of that. And he's a goalie coach that has a lot of value. And obviously he's going to be the Team Canada goalie coach at the Olympics as well.
Yeah. And I guess one more to kind of wrap on Blues here. You mentioned the Kyrou Thomas is 26, 27 years old, but so much experience. Like Robert Thomas is a guy who could be pushing for a spot on that Olympic team this year. And then this next sort of wave of talent, Holloway, Neighbors, 24, 23 years old, Snuggerud now again, who we led the conversation with. They have a legit group there and 2 good goalies and a blue line that's really, really good at locking things down with a couple of, pretty interesting young pieces there as well. I think they are built for now. I think they are built for the future. And when you have those 2 goalies, we talk about having to get through the dog days of the season, when you can get through those stretches of 3 games and 4 nights and you trust both guys or whichever guy you're putting between the pipes, man, you can all of a sudden snap your fingers and be through the tough parts of the season and be like, all right, let's play our best hockey down the stretch. I don't know. It's an impressive group there. I think I'm willing to put them in that conversation with the Winnipegs, the Dallases, and the Colorados. I really do think they're making me believe that much.
And this is a team that was minutes away from I don't know exactly the right numbers. I can't remember now. The debacle last year against the Winnipeg Jets of moved. right? Moving on to the next round and being a contender. And obviously, Winnipeg didn't fare too well in the next round. But that being said, they're close, right? And with a guy like Colton Parayko on the back end that can eat up a ton of minutes, he's a big body. He plays well. Probably one of the most sought after D-mens at times. He has offensive upside. He can play big minutes. He just seems like an absolute horse out there. That really protects your back end a lot. So there is a lot to go on there. And this is a team and an organization that is so big on culture and development and having the right people around it. I just don't see this team ever having a setback, right? I just feel like they've done a great job. And now the transition of Alex Steen as the GM, I think the future looks bright.
Let's stick in the Central Division. We're going to play a little fill in the blank here real quick before we get to our big segment. But you talked about that playoff series last year between the Jets and the Blues. And listen, the Connor Hellebuyck conversation, it's one of those things. It'll never go away until they get to a cup final and Hellebuyck powers them there, or whatever would need to happen. But I wanted to pick your brain a little bit on the topic of goalie usage, Huts. With this being an Olympic year, we're going to have that big gap in the schedule, which means the other parts of the schedule are a little bit more condensed. But for a guy like Hellebuyck, I don't think that 3-week gap is going to be him kicking his feet up on a beach in Cabo or whatever. Like, he's going to be playing games for Team USA. So with that in mind, blank is the ideal number of starts for Eric Comrie this year, who looked great the other night when they beat the Islanders.
Oh, that is a good question. I think for me with Comrie and Hellebuyck, this dynamic duo and the depth they have, I want to see Comrie get into that like 26 range to 30 range, which pushes Hellebuyck down into the 55, 56, where normally he's a 60 game goalie. I think if we can get Hellebuyck down into those 55s, low 50s, he's still busy. That's still a lot of hockey. Like playing 50 games in the NHL plus is a ton of work. And again, I know I've heard Connor Hellebuyck talk about this. He likes being in a rhythm and staying in a rhythm, but I feel like he still will be able to. And there needs to be a maturity about this too, right? There needs to be communication. I feel like he's a veteran. He knows what he needs. But just knowing that it's going to benefit him down the road and with the Olympic break, I think that would be the sweet spot for me, Ty.
Second one I got for you is about the San Jose Sharks. 2 points in 2 games for the Sharks, and they have not trailed once yet this season. Still, they're 0-2. They've blown a couple of nasty leads. They're struggling to keep pucks out of their net. But again, 2 points in 2 games. They're going to be near the basement. But what kind of step forward can the Sharks have this season? They were 52 points last season. Are you seeing anything that makes you think they can push higher? You're fill in the blank points for the Sharks this year.
I think they get into that like 60, low 60s range. I don't think we're sitting here, late in the year being like, hey, if they get hot, they could be involved in it. I just think you're going to find more of a consistent team, right? With the young talent. Again, it's going to be how their goaltending goes. I think Nedeljkovic obviously had a rough go, but I feel like having a guy that you can play 40 and 42 with Askarov, the younger star that you're really trying to develop, but still give him smarter starts with your young core of players like Will Clark, like Macklin Celebrini, these guys that are, built to develop into superstars. I think there's more potential this year. I think what they need to avoid, what they've done in the last few years, is those 12 double-digit losing streak games where it just hurts the culture and hurts the development of players, where I look for a more consistent team on and off the rink. But that being said, I still don't think they're ready to really take a step and be in the conversation as the season goes on.
Obviously, we're West heavy out of the gates here. We're going to go out to the East with Jeff Marek and talk Habs and Sabres in about 30 seconds here. But we had a conversation this morning, Huts. We were on Sirius XM together. It's our second time doing a show together this morning. But last year in the East, the gap between dead last and the playoffs was 15 points. In the West, it was 44 points. The playoff cut line was 96 to get that 8th spot in the West. It was 91 in the East. And I'm curious, like if you have San Jose going from, 52 to 62, right? They get a couple more games to OT. They win a couple more games. They take a little step forward. Everyone thinks, Anaheim could go from 80 to, maybe they're 90 and they're knocking on the playoff doorstep, pushing to get in. Like, I'm curious what that does with the cut line. Like if the West is going to be from top to bottom a little bit more competitive and that gap's not 44 points, does 91 get you in the West this year? Does 92 get you in the West? It's just, again, early days of the season here, but just one of those things that popped into my brain this morning where I'm like, I'm curious. Like, again, the Flames missed last year at 96 points. That's crazy to have a year like that and not be able to get into the playoffs. But I don't know if the gap's shorter. A team like San Jose, who are they stealing those points from? I guess is my question. Let's get to our big segment for the day because we do actually have a little bit of breaking news this morning from the Jeff Marek's appearance on the show is brought to you by Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app. From game day eats to paper plates, if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your go-to game day dip before, during, and after the game, Uber Eats is assisting you, the fan, and your hockey experience all season long. Jeff Marek, you love him from the sheet every weekday here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube, and you got something out of the gate.
Can I start with a question? Okay, Huts. So you guys were talking about Lane Lambert a couple of seconds ago to kick off the program. I think we're all curious, okay, what was Lane Lambert going to be like when he finally got the keys to the car and was able to drive it? So the game against Vegas on the weekend, something really interesting happened. And I'm curious what this does in the room. You know what it does for the players, but I'm curious what it does in the room when this happens. So Seattle and Vegas are deadlocked at ones, third period, nip and tuck game. We all know how these games are like, and especially for a team like Seattle, you want to do whatever you can to win a game like that. Like, you're right there with the Vegas Golden Knights. They're tied at one. It's the third period. Lane Lambert's still rolling out 4 lines. What does that do to the room? Like, we know what it does to those guys, but like, I know it's early in the season, but it's sort of like that first sneak peek into, okay, here's a big moment for Lane Lambert and how he reacts. As a player, what does that do to the room when Lane Lambert, tied game, third period, he's rolling 4 lines?
You know, for me, Jeff, I think just confidence, right? And that this is a new guy. He's here, and he believes in us as a unit. Where he doesn't have favorites. There's no, he's taking you at face value. And you hear this all the time, though, because it is a great topic, Jeff, because we hear all the time. I've played for so many teams where it's like, we're a team here and it's going to be and it's not. It's not. Guys get cookies. It's not. It's just the way it works, right? Guys get special treatment. And it's something you see all the time where even with equipment managers, you'd be like, well, everyone gets treated equal here. Like, but, Sid and this guy and this star, he gets a little bit more. So I think it does set the tone, and it talks about a team culture. And Lane is a guy that I played with. He was in Nashville when I was there. This is a guy that bleeds energy on the bench. Like, he is so into it. Normally he would be running the assistant as a penalty coach. When you feel that passion and he's in there with you, and then he does something like that where he plays your whole line, you just get an instant buy-in right away. So I credit Lane for doing that, because it would have been easy to shorten the bench and just go with your big dogs, and he didn't, and obviously paid dividends with a big win.
Yep. Okay, that's what I thought too. Like, that does have a positive effect throughout the locker room. Okay, Ty, I will turn the recreation back to you. I will stop playing host. Your show, go.
I was going to say, I have no comment on what it would do to a room. I played in a beer league game last night at 1 a.m. with 8 skaters. We were rolling one line. Yeah, two.
All right. 1.5 at that hour. Yeah, for sure. We all been there.
All right, let's talk about the Montreal Canadiens. Ken Hughes, Jeff Gordon, the extension news from today. I'm like, listen, 5 years ago, they were in a Stanley Cup final with Sherry Weber and Carey Price, and you flash forward to now, and I think a lot of people look at that core, the Hutton deal. Everybody's locked up, and it's like, okay, are they on the doorstep once again of being a Stanley Cup contender? I think they've done a damn near perfect rebuild, and we always say, oh, the NHL is a copycat league. So, like, what are the lessons here? Like, what did Montreal do so well to basically lap other franchises who are rebuilding at the same time?
Great question. I think part of it is luck. Part of it is having a plan. There's an old saying. I'm gonna butcher it. It's from LBJ. I'm gonna butcher it, but I think you're gonna get the spirit of it. Plans are useless, but planning is everything. The idea being that you have to have a plan, but don't let the concrete harden around it. Some things are going to appear to you, both positive and negative, and you have to be able to react to it. When I look at the Montreal Canadiens, I think of that quote, and I hope that I nailed it right. Planning is useless. Plans are useless, but planning is everything. And this is what Ken Hughes and Jeff Gorton have had from day one. Sometimes things fall into your lap. The Noah Dobson situation with the New York Islanders, like that fell into their lap. Lane Hutson fell into their lap. Like, you have to have some good luck along the way. I think you have to have some good fortune along the way. I think it's always important to have the right players in the key positions. I think Nick Suzuki, I mean, listen, sometimes sometimes you get the best luck when you don't get what you want, and Cody Glass was supposed to be that guy. Right, in that trade, and Vegas said no, and they turned to Nick Suzuki, and all of a sudden the Montreal Canadiens have Nick Suzuki instead of Cody Glass, and all of a sudden we're talking about him as like, Timu Patrice Bergeron, like he's mini-me Patrice Bergeron, like put 37 on his back. That's what they're saying in Montreal. So I think it's a combination of the willingness to have a concrete plan together, but two, the willingness to be flexible with it and just react to the game that's placed in front of you. And I think the Montreal Canadiens have done a masterful job of that. And let's not disqualify luck along the way. The other thing that and this is where I'll come back to luck with the Montreal Canadiens, and I'll take the example of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who tried to do something similar. And that was lock up the core for as long as they could. That was Kyle Dubas's plan. It's not going to look early on the salary cap, but by the time the extensions expire, these are all going to look like good deals. The difference is the Toronto Maple Leafs ran into COVID and a flat cap, and the Montreal Canadiens are going headstrong into an NHL where everybody has money, everybody has cap space right now. That's the difference. Sucks if you're a Maple Leafs fan to hear that, but that's the reality. Montreal is going into a bloated cap. Leafs went into a flat cap. That's the difference. And Tyler, like you, I share a lot of optimism for this team, and they're a fun team to watch too. That helps. They're fun.
They are exciting, right? And it's a good time to be a Montreal Canadiens fan when we look at the depth of that core and how long they are locked up for. Now the Lane Hutton contract, right? Because we threw numbers around, right? We all tried to forecast this, and this is, again, a team-friendly deal where he could have got more. And does this come down to the watching other big players in other markets take a little less to help their team win and to cement your legacy somewhere in Montreal where it is a hockey hotbed? Or is this just like a guy who wanted the term? Where does this fall in your eyes, Jeff?
This is the player wanting this conversation over. I don't think that Lane Hutton really wanted any conversation publicly about him to be about anything other than his play. And one thing we should point out here too, I did a piece on dailyfaceoff.com last year on Lane Hutton and the Hutton family. The one thing, going through all of it and talking to people in and around his orbit is just how much he loves Montreal. I mean, pretty easy thing to do. Montreal's a gorgeous city with wonderful hockey fans and ghosts of the Forum. And if you're a hockey person, like this is the place to be, and always has been. So loves Montreal, didn't like the public discourse around him. I don't think that he wanted to wait until the ultimate pressure point, which would have been next September, for Lane Hutton to sign. And I think it was like it feels, again, this is like all based on like vibe check here. It feels like it was after the Detroit Red Wings game last week where Lane Hutton said, "Let's just get this done. Let's just do this. If we're married to 9 and they want 8, let's meet at the middle and let's just get this thing done." I think that Hutton was uncomfortable about whether it was a campaign or not, the nature of the narrative around him in the marketplace. His position, not just with the team, but in the city of Montreal as well. Do you guys not feel like there's kind of like a PK Subban vibe around Lane Hutton in Montreal? Loves the city, incredibly generous, embraced everything about being a Montreal Canadian. That's Lane Hutton. To me, this whole thing is driven by the player. Now, there is an interesting dynamic here that was at play the whole time. And that is Kent Hughes, formerly of Cortex, representing the Montreal Canadiens, locked in negotiations with Sean Coffey of Cortex. Sean Coffey was brought into the agency by Kent Hughes. Kent Hughes was his mentor. So this negotiation was very much, and this dynamic doesn't happen very often, if at all, a mentor-mentee type relationship. We don't see that in the NHL, but we did with Lane Hutton.
That is interesting. All right, let's go from one end of the rebuilding spectrum to the other. I want to touch on the Buffalo Sabres before we let you go. And, we talked about
Hang
it
on,
a
how
little
much
bit
time do you have, Tyler? How much time?
Yeah,
My show's
I know.
on
I
at the
left
top
it
of
for
the hour.
end. I left it for the end, and 2 minutes. Sabres fans in our chat are probably saying, you know what? Yeah, 2 minutes is enough. We don't really want to hear this. But could there be like a domino effect here where, like, if Alex Tuck goes, you know what? I'm not re-signing. Trade me. And then Tage Thompson goes, you know what? I didn't sign up for this. Trade me. And then could Darlene go, well, if you're trading him, get me the hell out of here too.
It's a great question. I think a lot of people are wondering about this. Like, every day that goes on is another day that Alex Tuck doesn't re-sign with the Buffalo Sabres. I would wonder about the speculation about him with the Edmonton Oilers, which would make a lot of sense. Connor McDavid left a lot of money on the table. Does that go right into Alex Tuck's jeans on July 1st? Or did they do something before? I'm getting ahead of myself here. When you're in this type of situation, you're Tage Thompson. How many years of your prime are you willing to sacrifice for the never-ending rebuild? I will pause, even so slightly, Ty, on Rasmus Dahlin, because I do think that there's, much like with Jack Eichel and his loyalty to Vegas, not just because of the city and the team, but also how they afforded him the opportunity to have the surgery that he wanted, namely the ADR, when Buffalo was saying, no, we're doing spinal fusion, and Eichel was like, no, we're not. I'm going to sit here and wait until I get the surgery that I want. So I think that there was some loyalty there. And I do think there is some loyalty with Rasmus Dahlin and the Buffalo Sabres for just specifically how they helped his wife in the offseason. Not to belabor it too much, but that does go far. Hutz, you can talk about what that feels like as a player when a team goes above and beyond to help a loved one and to help a family member. That does buy you some grace with that organization. So I could see it with Tuck, Tyler. Certainly, I could see it with Tage Thompson. I still think he's frustrated. Tage is about what happened last year when Stefan Nason took that run at him, and instead of everybody jumping him, they all cut their laces, and then there was soundly humiliated because of it. So I still think there's something there. So I don't think, like, at this point, I don't think this would surprise anybody. And to be honest with you, I wonder if we're just waiting. Jarmo Kekalainen is there. I don't think it would be beyond the pale to suggest that a GM change might happen sooner than later. And if a GM change happens, does a coach change happen? That second and third period, Buffalo didn't touch the puck yesterday, and it looked like this team quit on Lindy Ruff. Do we see Jarmo Kekalainen in, and does he bring a former Buffalo Sabre assistant coach once upon a time many years ago, and John Tortorella along with him? These are some of the things we'll talk about at the top of the hour.
That is very interesting, Jeff. All
juicy,
right,
Tyler, juicy.
Who else do you have coming up on the show today?
Kevin Kurz is talking about the Philadelphia Flyers. Did you see Dvorak chisel that goal from Sanheim last night? We're going to show that one today. Who tips a puck on an empty net? Dvorak, baby. Loved it. So we'll talk to Kevin Kurz about that. Mike Gagello from the Hockey News on the Buffalo Sabres drama. So we're going to stick in the East today.
The Sheet, top of the hour, right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. Thanks for doing this, Jeff.
Thanks, boys.
All right, Hots, let's get to our Daily Faceoff inbox question, hashtag askdfo. There was one in here, and I really hope I didn't lose it. There is a lot of Sabres fans being, generally sad in our YouTube chat there. So again, I feel for him, man. I really do.
I will say one thing about Buffalo is my daughter is 6 years old. She was born in Buffalo, and she always asked to go on vacation to Buffalo. That's like me and her mom are like, no, we're going to a beach somewhere for vacation. She wants to go to Buffalo. She loves it. And dear to God, I hope they turn this thing around. I don't know what they're going to do. I feel for these Pagulas because it just goes to show you that no matter how much money you have, you need to build it from within if you really want to win in hockey.
As a diehard Bills fan, I do vacation to Buffalo usually once every couple of years. So I'm with your daughter, Hutz. I love Buffalo. It's obviously a great city. I think it is. It'll be interesting to see what ends up happening out there. I totally lost. Okay, here, J-Rock. I'm as down on Buffalo as anyone. Oh, sorry. There's the question I wanted. It said, why is no one talking about the Islanders the same way that we're talking about the Buffalo Sabres? And I think, Hutz, the answer is simple. It's the fact the Islanders are in year 2 of their rebuild. The Sabres are in year 14. The Islanders fans, if you gave Islanders fans said 20% shot at Gavin McKenna or a playoff spot this year, I bet you they almost all take the 20% shot at Gavin McKenna.
Yeah, 100%, right, too. And this is a leash that is earned through success. This is a leash that is earned with playoff success. This is a team that was, went to game 7 with the Tampa Bay Lightning in the conference final not that long ago. So you kind of earn the right to have a leash. And again, this is where players, and for me, obviously in the market I deal with a lot with goaltending, is we're very critical of certain guys and success and where they're at. But certain guys get a pass. It's because they've earned the right to do that. And the Buffalo Sabres haven't. They've been bad for a lot of years. And until they show us otherwise, they don't get the pass when we're critiquing early in the season.
Let's get to our daily bets, brought to you by Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365 as we bring in our boy Pat. Did anybody get their pick? Hutz and I were wrong. Pat, did you nail yours yesterday?
No one got it yesterday. We'll bring it up here. It's not looking good as far as keeping track is going.
No, that's ugly. Our picks for today. Who wants to go first? Pat, what do you got?
I'll go first here. Pat,
okay, Hutz is going first. Go, Hutz.
Okay, Hutz.
I'm biting at the bit here. I got the Caps and Tampa Bay over 6 goals. We got Vasilevsky versus Thompson. I know I just think both these teams are giving up a lot. So I look for that to go over 6 here in a desperate game back to back. There's going to be a lot of chances. I like goals in this.
All right, Pat.
I'm going Hurricanes -1.5 on the Sharks. I'm not trying to fade the Sharks. They did go to overtime twice, got some points. But at the end of the day, we're looking at one of the top teams in the league versus one of the bottom teams in the league. The Hurricanes are undefeated. Trying to just keep it safe at -110. So I like the Hurricanes -1.5.
I am not a Leafs homer, but I'm going back to a Toronto Maple Leafs bet. No, not trusting them to win today, but Matthews 4+ shots on goal. He crushed this yesterday, getting 8 in their game against Detroit. He had 6 the game before that. Nashville coming in the same situation as Toronto, playing a back-to-back. So, I don't know. I feel like Matthews is going to keep ripping it. It's not like he's facing a really tough opponent. And watching that game yesterday, it was an Amazon Prime game. Watching that game yesterday, he was willing to shoot from anywhere. He was taking shots from the half wall. He was taking shots off the rush. So Matthews is in shoot mode. He averaged well over 4 shots a game last year. And I think getting the 4+ shots, which again is just over 3.5 is another way to say it, at -135, his line's going to be 4.5 for the bulk of the season. So I'll go Matthews shot prop. Hutz has the over between the Bolts and Caps, and Patty Puff's got the Canes on the puck line. I might tail Pat on that puck line one there, but that is our daily bets for our friends at Bet365. Wrapping up the show with a little bit of garbage time. Optimism is high in Chicago, but I don't know if you saw this. The lights, Hutz, in the middle of the game, going out, middle of the rush up the ice in their game against the Utah Mammoth the other day, and everything just turned off.
I love it. I know that Panger was talking in between the break there that he had pulled the wrong plug in the penalty box there. So, or between the benches, the little box. So it's wild what's going on there. And that's unique to see with a building full of people. So we were chatting a little bit before we got on air. There's so many different stories I dealt with in the minors. And one that I thought about was when the ice plant went in an East Coast game. So by the time overtime was over, the rink was littered with ice, and I was piling it in the slot before the shootout to try to slow them down. So it's funny the things you see in a hockey rink, especially filled with 20,000 people.
I love the story you told us before our show of your one and only career trip to the penalty box.
Oh, yes. That is a good one for YouTube. You guys can look that up. I think it's a brawl between Rockford and Grand Rapids in the minors where the ice is painted pink for breast cancer awareness. We're wearing pink jerseys with ice hogs on it. And a brawl breaks out. Wade Brookbank actually is down there fighting. Their goalie tries to jump in, and I skate down and get in my first ever full tilt goalie fight with Peter Mrazek. And they threw me in the penalty box. It was great. A lot of selfies were taken with fans while I sat in the penalty box. The first and only time I ever got thrown in the box.
How long, obviously they did that to calm things down, but how long were you in there for?
I was in there for a few minutes, 5 minutes, because everybody on the ice was brawling. It's a great YouTube video where the ice is laddered. And I always remember the name. I don't know if you remember the name, Keenan McCardell. He got thrown in the box with me, and he was going nuts. He's like, why am I in here? Why am I in here? And then after it all calmed down, we were able to watch the fight. He must have suckered 4 guys in the fight. He just skated around suckering guys, and he was very confused to why he was in the penalty box. I was like, you're lucky you're not going to jail for assault. So it was definitely my craziest brawl that I have ever been in.
All right. One more piece of news to pass along to people. Brady Tkachuk is going to miss at least the next 4 weeks with a hand injury. Unclear if he'll need surgery. That's a big blow for the Ottawa Senators, who are looking to get off to a good start. Maybe we'll talk a little Sens tomorrow on the program. Steve Peters is also going to be by. Great stuff from our boy Jeff Marek today. Appreciate him popping on. He's up in about 25 minutes with the sheet, but that is a wrap for us here on Daily Faceoff Live. Have a good Tuesday. We'll see you all tomorrow. Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on the sheet with Jeff Marek, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.